Okay, so we're talking about DreamHack Malmo today, what we can expect and what I expect to come from this. So Group A, we're going to start off with Boots, it's a team from the Singapore region, SK Gaming, Cloud9, and North. And I picked North as my dark horse in this tournament because recent performance online with the new lineup has been half decent, and they've had best of one wins over G2, a top tier team, Envious and NIP, which are two teams with one with the new roster and one that's been on the rise recently, and they actually split the series with G2 and Envy, the two French teams. They played Nuke 3 times, Cobblestone twice, and Inferno once. So funny enough, North and Heroic, two teams which are avoided with this mix-up for North. North, of course, which is suspected to be a half-decent team at the start, especially when they have Rubino. They were actually pretty good, but unfortunately it didn't live up to expectations, much like the North roster itself didn't live up to expectations. And Heroic was a team that on Cobblestone was able to actually get half-decent results against top-tier teams. They did pretty good against them, which is really good. But on Cobblestone now, they're currently 1-on-1 with this new lineup, but they've only played like 5 matches, like I said. And their first match at DreamHack is against Cloud9 and their new improved roster. And on this roster, they have Tarek and they have Rush, two players coming in from Optic. We'll talk about more of that roster move and that team later on. But the last time that Cloud9 and North played was actually at the PGL Major, and they lost 60-12 in a best-of-ones to opening match on Barrage. When it comes to when they eventually meet up at DreamHack Malmo, which is highly possible, I think C9 will more likely win this matchup, as North, the maps that Cloud9 don't like to play is Cobble and Nuke, and they ban them quite often. And in fact, Nuke's actually probably a perma-ban, the first ban for Cloud9 of recent months, and probably going to continue that way, as Optic didn't really like to play the map Nuke either, so the two coming over from Optic probably won't continue to play that under the in-game leader of Cloud9. North, like the first ban, train quite a lot, so that leaves Cloud9 to set up a Cobble ban if they want to, but more likely a Nuke first, and then North more likely to go for a Cobble ban as they not a Cobble ban. Cloud9 like to go for a Cobble ban to block out the good map for North. So that opens the map pool open quite wide for Cloud9, so they could probably get what they want. And honestly, with this new lineup, I'm quite confident that Cloud9 could probably take down North. The likes of Rush is pretty good, and Tarek, again, we'll come to those in a second. North, again, sticking with my dark horse, will eventually also have to play the SK, and SK are the best team in the world, probably. After these roster moves and such, I'm almost got with SK or Australis. They're going to be top 2, just because they have many moves and they're such a strong team. So it's highly unlikely that the number 1 team in the world with the best players will drop them at the North. But we never know what some of these players could do. They could have an upset. I think North are more likely to have an upset over C9 if they get a map and they play well. Whether they do or not, I'm not too sure. That's another kettle of fish. Move on to the 4th team in this first group, Boots. The Singaporean team, as I said before, I don't see them doing too well, unfortunately. Not only have they got 2 new lineups in the form with North and C9, who haven't been together too long, so in the same sense, you don't have much material on them. They're both talented lineups individually. Although I say North probably don't have best chance against the other 2 teams, I say North probably better than this Boots lineup. They did take down Flash and Vici in the best of 3, both going to a 3rd map to get to this event in the first place. That's pretty good, considering Flash Gaming is meant to be that next big up-and-coming Chinese team that probably could do damage after the Tyloo split. And Vici has a half-decent team as well, as we know, as Bentet, who's one of those players that actually filled in for Tyloo at a couple of events and was absolutely insane. He really impressed the entire world scene. But if they get a single map win, I say Boots are pretty happy. I mean, you got North, who have been, heavily contested and considered a team that could hold as one of the gatekeepers for top 10. You got Cloud9 with this new roster, which is probably going to be doing pretty half decent as they go on. And SK is their first map as well in the tournament. Best of luck, mate. Best of luck. Let's talk about Cloud9 earlier. They have a high chance of coming out 2nd or even 1st in this group. I mean, we remember that one of the first and biggest and only tournaments Cloud9 won was actually up against SK at ESL Sao Paulo, I believe, which is in Brazil, of course, SK's home ground. And they won that event against SK, the best team in the world, and it was actually in their what you call the SK era, which led into the uncertainty era because of all the roster moves. We weren't sure. SK dropped off a little bit. Cloud9 actually won a high level tournament against that, and the same color amongst the Optic one, so it was a big NA reunion. Like, oh holy shit, we did some stuff. But this new lineup, they could get an upset. I'm not too sure. SK are just so regimented. I don't know where you'd go from there. So, moving on from there, we got Group B, which is Astralis, Nartis Vincere, Renegades, and Virtus Pro. Now, I'm going to start with Renegades here. Renegades has the Australian trio, which is once an Australian five-man, which was known for upsetting North American teams a lot, and occasionally European teams, but they never really got any further than just an upset team, unfortunately. Similar to Heroic in a sense, they had a few upsets, but never got any further. The current Renegades lineup consists of 3 Australians, JKS, Ustillo, who replaced Sponge, the popular analyst nowadays, and AZR, alongside Nifty, who replaced Kusta back in the day, which when Kusta made the move from Selfless to Liquid, Nifty was the guy who replaced that guy. Jay-Z Walkins, who comes from Sweden, he played in the Fnatic Academy team. I think he also played in QWERTY at DreamHack. What was the team? I think it was DreamHack Leipzig. I might be wrong. I could quite probably be wrong. Could have been a different player. Jay-Z Walkins is actually a Swedish guy. He's pretty good. He had some breakout performances over in Europe since coming to North America. He may not actually be over in North America. I do not know. In all seriousness, but he hasn't had the best performances. He's been quite lackluster. But he's one of those players that I think if he gets comfortable in this lineup, he could be pretty scary. He has gone missing in some of the bigger matches, unfortunately. They 16-1 Splice in the ESL Pro League, I believe. It might have been a different tournament. But they also got 16-1 by Splice. Splice, who doesn't have a lineup, which I don't think I even know any of the players since they've switched too much. But if all these players hit a stride, Nifty, who's had some highlights over in ESL already, JC Walkins, who has some highlights as well, and Australian players in the form of JKS and Ustillo, they have chances of perhaps getting an upset over a team like VP. VP, who haven't had the best couple of tournaments. If you look back to PGL Major, sure, they made it semi-finals, but the best teams they faced were like Immortals North, who they beat 2-0 in the quarterfinals, and then Immortals, who they lost 2-0 in the semis in front of a home crowd. If you put that into perspective, I don't see VP doing too good, to be honest. They're a 5-man lineup, been together as the longest lineup in all this Counter-Strike, but they have not had a good chance. They lost to Gambit, in the major, that is, who went on to win it. They lost to Immortals, who went on to play second. So you could play the card. Oh, VP lost to the best 2 teams, who placed first and second in the major. That means they were done wrong by. If they beat one of them, maybe they would have won. That's not how it works. Sorry, that's not how it works. Will they beat Na'Vi? This is Renegades we're talking about. Could Renegades beat Na'Vi? Maybe? If Simple doesn't have a mouse? Edward isn't good? Zeus hasn't talked to the team since he's joined? Maybe. But I don't think that's the case. I think Na'Vi's too good of a lineup now with Zeus in the lineup. I don't think I could see this team faltering. I can see Zeus now having the experience of working with someone like Hobbit and Adren, 2 players who were quite lost, one who was quite young. He could put them in positions where they could be super effective. I could see Simple now being the primary AWP, being hyper effective in the same sense that Hobbit and Adren were. I mean, Adren was being talked about at the major as one of the possible best players at the major, one of the best entry fraggers at the major, and perhaps even top 5. That's a big jump from a team like Gambit, who weren't doing anything before it. So, that's a big up for Zeus. Moving on to the likes of Na'Vi and Astralis. I see Astralis coming out top of the group season. They retained their lineup. It's a good lineup as well. It works within its own system. I can see it working. So I see Astralis and Na'Vi progressing out of this group. I mean, VP, it's one of those teams like, Virtus Pro, Virtus Pro, the plow's coming. The plow must have failed its fucking MOT or something, because it hasn't done anything for a good couple of months, I must admit. Like, yeah, the semis is good, but they didn't play anyone like top 5, top 3. Fnatic with their new lineup, maybe. No, not yet. Their old lineup, no. It wasn't considered doing anything better than maybe getting out of playoffs. So it's hard to argue that they'd even do anything. So Astralis and Na'Vi are probably going to go through as their top 2. I don't think VP or Renegades are really going to do much. And if they do, it's going to take some severe over performances, or shall I say, shit performances from the other teams. Group C, we have FaZe Clan, Mouse Sports, Gambit, and NIP. Now this is one of a difficult group. Not because there's a lot of team, it's just that all the rosters are uncertain. NIP recently won DreamHack Valencia, where they beat Red Reserve, a Swedish up-and-coming team, in the final. And since then, they've lost a best-of-3 against Big, who played well at Major, sure, and 3 best-of-1s against other teams in the ESL Pro League. 2 against North, 1 against Na'Vi, and they split their series against Na'Vi, actually, the ESL Pro League. But even then, it took a 31-kill game from Forest on Mirage to drag them across the line. And I'm pretty sure there was like an eco round where they just got lucky. It was a slog. It was a slugfest. It really was. The 2 newest players, Rez and Draken, have certainly helped the team change from its form a little bit. Rez is a great rifler, and Draken's aggro AWPing. It's a whole new look to the team, and it's definitely needed after the past couple of years where they have just let down their fans and just really not lived up to the expectations that we know of NIP and expect from NIP. Compared to some of the other rosters in this group, it's a tough one. NIP don't like to play Cobblestone, and it's their first ban. But the first match is actually against FaZe Clan, a team that doesn't play Cobble. So, if they both have the same permaban, that means one of them either end's going to get a free ban, basically. They can probably float it and ban a map that they don't like playing. And even then, it's scary to play FaZe Clan, who has a lot of individual play, and could pick apart some of the lesser skilled and faded parts of that NIP team. It's a difficult one, definitely, for NIP to come out on top unless FaZe pull a major and underperform, which is not good. I mean, you look at their experience before then, it was almost spotless. So 6 out of 5 finals, 5 out of 6 finals or something they went to, and one of them they didn't reach is why they placed last place. I think that's a statistic. I might be wrong, but it's still pretty fucking good. Mouse Sports, another team that's involved with the shuffles and also in this group. The changes bring in Stico from Hellraisers and Sunny to the lineup, which comes from Penta, who was also in the major. And they join Chris J, Oscar, and Rots, which is an incredibly talented lineup, actually. And I could see them topping the group. They outshine Gambit, now that they've lost their most crucial cornerstone, Zeus, and NIP in raw power, and they're playing all on the same page, which is more than could be said than a rival international team, FaZe Clan, who have actually just brought on 2 new players, as you may know, in the form of Guardian and Olafmeister. 2 players that demanded a lot of their old team, as being the central star player. Olafmeister, who came from a more loose and just, I'm going to headshot everyone era, and Guardian, who had 4 players built around him, succeeding. It's a difficult one. Their most recent matches have been quite spotty for FaZe Clan this series, and the individuals actually on FaZe get caught slipping into their old ways, focusing on their game instead of the teams. In fact, there's a match between FaZe Clan and on Train at the ESL Pro League, which I watched the other night. I actually don't remember who it was against, unfortunately. But they'd lost quite a few rounds in a row, to the point where Olafmeister was lurking and pushing smokes just after his teammate died, giving away another kill, which is quite a shame. He was giving away 3 kills, basically, mainly because the team didn't have any structure to it straight away, and then, yet again, just giving away 3 kills. Which is rough to say about FaZe Clan. So I could see Mousesports topping this group, definitely, unless FaZe Clan have done some major research and actually start fitting roles to their players. Right now, we got a lot of star players in that team who don't really know where they're meant to be. So as they glossed over, I think the major winning lineup could progress to the playoffs if Adren keeps this insane entry fragging and raw rifling dominance, which helped them actually win the major in the first place. Adren is a keystone, like a crucial part alongside Zeus in the old lineup for the reason why they won. And unfortunately, it's been said that Adren will be taking over the in-game leader role, which is, as we know, actually ruins a lot of star players. You look at Stewie 2K, he could probably be a lot better if he wasn't being an in-game leader of his team. And I feel like Adren could fall into that same trap of not being able to focus on his same game unless he plays a Stewie 2K and plays with himself, or plays what Happy used to do when he lurked and play everything around him and his picks and what he was doing on the opposite side of the map. Adren, who's new to in-game leading, sure, he's spent some time with Zeus and such, and he's quite a veteran player at this point. He could actually struggle quite a lot, and maybe with this new guy who stepped into Zeus's place, he could struggle quite a lot, and I worry about it. So in short, I see FaZe and Mousesports coming out on top in no particular order, to be honest, but either could be replaced by either of the other 2 groups. It's a tough group, and not because of the high skill level, but because of the uncertainty in the lineups. Moving on to Group D, we have Envious, Fnatic, G2, and Immortals. It seems no matter how these groups get split, it's always a group of death, and so to say. I mean, because I really want to see all these teams make it to the playoffs and get the ball rolling and try and test their mettle. G2 should be the favourites to progress onwards, but the new Fnatic crew, and Immortals are still a scary prospect when it comes to actually progressing, as both teams have players that are capable of upsetting with a monster game from the likes of KNG and Steel and Immortals, then the whole goddamn team of Fnatic. Like, even the new guy Golden on Fnatic seems like a solid in his recent matches. I watched him get like a 2 or 3k as players ran out of A ramp by playing smartly, that is, not just because of raw aim, playing smartly underneath Wood and Palace on Mirage. He's a solid player, and he's a smart player, which is important. So you've got those two worries to talk about. Following up, you have Envious, the second best French team. That is almost annual French shuffle has actually screwed them over, and they've been a mess for a while. And I don't see him doing well, to be honest. Sure, they 2-0'd Red Reserve, the aforementioned up-and-coming Swedish team, and Ares, another predominant French team in E-League, EU Premier, to qualify. And to be honest, I don't really know many of the players in that French team. In fact, I only knew UU. Actually, I think it was actually in LDSC. He may have not been, I could be wrong, but he's not even French. So what does that say? I mean, granted, it was online, so Envious wants some online matches, but it doesn't fill your confidence when you place Envious, a team that has been pushed back into the shadows, next to some of the world's current greatest teams. G2, world renowned, is probably a top 5 team with the lineup they have. Immortals, who just played second at the major, of course, which is very important. And then, it's not something that you can see happen. Fnatic actually play Immortals, by the way, at first. And we're banning Cash and Cobble as their first 2 primary bans in many cases. And there's still targeted bans like Train and Nuke for teams like VP, whereas Immortals like to ban Nuke as their primary, and normally like taking Cash out as their second. Fnatic probably wants Overpass or Mirage, and Immortals will want Cobble, for sure. I mean, which probably will get banned. Fnatic is a smart team, they probably will get some targeted bans in there. And so even if Fnatic get a preferred map against Immortals, it's going to be tough. The stars are consistent most of the times. KNG had a really good major, to be honest. Even though he wasn't like great up in the stats, he had some really crucial and clutch moments, which got them as far as they did. And Steel did really good. Even players like Bolts, who put a lot of the behind-the-scenes work, they did a lot of work to get them across to where they did. So, it's difficult. Fnatic could top this group. They could play second in this group, definitely. And they could take on most of the top 3 teams. But Fnatic is still very new, and I'm not sure where my confidence lies in them. So, all of this in mind, I see G2 and Immortals going through. But I must admit, Fnatic could place either, as G2 can start slow and never even get going. I mean, we saw the major. It was a bit of a disappointment, I must admit. We expect them to go further. We want them to go further, many people. And it's a shame. So, whether they get that good start or not, I don't know. I'll be doing a follow-up for the playoffs when these group stages play out. And but those are my rundown. So I expect G2 and Immortals going through from Group D. I see FaZe Clan and Mousesports going through from Group C. I see Astralis and Na'Vi going from Group B. And I see SK and Cloud9 progressing from Group A.